Turn this up. Turn this up.
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality.
Hi, I'm Paul Faronbi, aka IncrediPaul, and welcome to IncrediPaul Leadership, where we learn how to become the most incredible versions of ourselves by learning from each other. First off, if you're only listening to this episode, I want you to know that you can also watch it on YouTube. But regardless if you're listening or watching this episode, I really appreciate your support. It's because of listeners or viewers, streamers of the show that keep doing things like this. And quick plug in, because I never talked about it, but behind me I have this LED screen or LED light for IncrediPaul. So always trying to do new fun things for the show. Something I've thought about for a while, was able to find someone that can do it. So I posted it on my Instagram a while ago, but it was from Get Lit Neon Sign Company. So definitely reach out to them if you're looking for a neon sign. Another person personally, they do it all over the country. So reach out to them. You can either search for them on Instagram or reach out to me. I can definitely connect you with them. That was a quick plug for them. That was not really planned. But this week, I'm celebrating 5 years of IncrediPaul. So I'm excited. One, because IncrediPaul is actually a kindergartner. So now we can go to school, start moving forward. But in all seriousness, it's been really crazy to see how things have gone. And I want to share a little bit about the journey of how IncrediPaul even started. I know I've shared about it before in previous episodes, but I'm going to dive a little bit more into how and the why of IncrediPaul, and also talk about what it means to be an introverted leader. So maybe you've heard about IncrediPaul, you know the story. Maybe you can tell the story even better than I can. Stick around, because I'm going to talk about what it means to be an introverted leader as well. So with IncrediPaul, the whole reason why I started it, or the beginnings of it, really more focused on career development and professional development. So 5 years. So that was in 2020, April 2020. So for those of you in the United States, understand that that means it was COVID time. So that was the beginnings of COVID. Really didn't understand what was going on. I know on the other side of the world, in Asia especially, it had been around since 2019, but in the US wasn't really until mid-March 2020, where everything slowed down. So it was no different for me. I was able to do more things, but really the beginnings of IncrediPaul have nothing to do with IncrediPaul at all. So I was a part of Inspire LSAMP Alumni Committee from 2017. So I was able to co-found that organization. And you're like, what is that? I'm glad you asked. Inspire LSAMP. Inspire is a local LSAMP from Iowa State University. And I've talked about LSAMP or LSAMP before on the show, but if you're not aware, it is the Louis Stokes Alliance for Minority Participation. The whole goal for LSAMP is to inspire people and really provide resources for people who are underrepresented in STEM to get bachelor's degrees, pursue research in undergrad, provide funding for research, conferences, symposiums, and go on to graduate degrees, PhDs, all of those things. So I was really involved in that organization while I was in college in 2017. Me and a co-founder were able to create an alumni association for our specific LSAM. And it was really exciting, a lot of fun. We got to do a lot of stuff with conferences and workshops in person. We did some at Iowa State. We did a University of Northern Iowa, University of Iowa, because Inspire was around Iowa, Illinois, and Nebraska, but a lot of the universities were in Iowa. So those are ones that usually host the universities. Really, leading up to 2020, I had been involved in this organization. We were co-presidents and was really passionate about serving and doing these things. We didn't have an official LLC, nonprofit, or anything at the time while I was leading the organization, how I found the organization, but we just really love to connect with students and with alumni and give back. Towards the end of 2019, I had reached out to a regional LSAMP. So LSAMP as I quickly learned through this process over the last 5 years, is all over the country. Now, over 50 different LSAMP alliances with a lead institution ranging from like, I think as little as 4 institutions up to 10 different colleges and universities. So we reached out to a regional one called the Louis Stokes Midwest Regional Center of Excellence based out of Indianapolis, IUPUI, and was trying to see if there are other LSAMPs that we could potentially partner with, alumni association, because see if we could do different programming, different things like that. And they told us that there was not anything like that, but they were thinking about starting something on a national level and they wanted to see what we were doing. So with that, I presented the idea of what we had been doing with Inspire LSAMP Alumni Committee, and they loved the idea. And then they asked, would you consider leading it? And at first, I was like, you know what? That was not in the cards. I was all about collaboration. I wasn't thinking about leading anything like this. But I'm a person of faith, as y'all know. So I prayed about it, thought about it. I was like, you know what? Like, let's just see what happens, see what if it fails, if it doesn't, like I was doing this. And let's see if anyone's even interested in it. Cause we did it for our local alliance. We don't know if the other alliances are interested in it. So the plan was to go to different conferences and just to present the idea. This is what Inspire is doing. Would you be interested in doing something on a regional, maybe even national level? So the first one we went to was in February 2020 was the Illinois LSAMP Symposium in Chicagoland, kind of suburbs of Chicago, thinking of like Lisle, Naperville area. And they really loved the idea, got a lot of support from the alliance directors and students and all these stuff. And I was able to choose someone that was already a part of Inspire LSAMP Alumni Committee. And that was me, myself, and Lizette. So Lizette, who's been on a guest on the show before, we were able to go there, present an idea. They loved it. We're going to go to 2 more, actually 3 more over the next couple months. But March 2020, COVID hit, really shut down everything. And so we kind of took a step back to figure out, okay, how are we actually going to do this? At the same time, I was co-leading this other organization I mentioned and wanted to figure out, okay, are we just going to expand Inspire LSAMP Alumni Committee, ILAC, or are we going to create something else? So talked to my co-founder, co-president, and decided that we would spin it off as something else, that I would lead this new initiative and still stay tapped into what ILAC was doing. Hand selected a couple people, Lizette Tamayo, PhD, as I mentioned, and then Natalie Fuentes, PhD, who I had known Natalie really since my first year of college. We have been involved in different organizations, helped start a student organization. She's also been a guest on the podcast too. So sense a common theme here. So we were going to do that. In the middle of this, when COVID hit, things slowed down enough for me because I had been traveling extensively while I was even leading stuff with ILAC into 2019, 2020, was with Nestle Purina at a time in a continuous improvement engineer type role. And was really traveling across the country, was helping with a different rollout of some technology that I was working on with a broader group of people. When COVID hit, I went from traveling like 75, 80% of the time to zero. And so that was a huge change of pace. And then I just felt on my heart, and some people had like mentioned it, like planted a seed there, so if you will, about potentially formalizing what I was doing. When everything slowed down, I said, okay, this opportunity, I can actually form an LLC. And I was thinking about, okay, I want to do this LLC for myself. And so I could formalize, get paid, all these different stuff I've been doing for free, but I want to make it more official. And so with that, I reached out to a couple of mentors, 2 who of which have not been on the podcast yet. Keyword is yet. Like our schedules are crazy, so we haven't been able to get it to work out quite yet. But one of them was Brian Thomas. The other one was Chelsea Hayes. And Brian Thomas was really instrumental in me in college, really inspired me to do more and be more, talk about greatness awaits and going after your greatness, all those different things. And he inspired me to continue to learn and grow and just get as much experience as I can in speaking, whether paid or not, just hone my craft, inspire my craft. On the other side of things, connecting with Chelsea Hayes, she was really big on the business side of things, getting paid to speak, putting the infrastructure in place, what I needed to do an EPK, a media kit, just to know so that people knew what I was about, what I already done. Cause like I said, I had already been doing things. I just wasn't getting paid for it. I didn't even think of it as a means to get paid for. It's just something that I enjoy doing. So I was able to create that EPK, eventually create a website. Actually, Chelsea was instrumental in connecting me with the person who helped design the logo you're seeing behind me, the logo you see on the mic. And that was incredible. So in touch with her today, and she is a phenomenal leader, does a lot of stuff with organizations across the country. Definitely, I'm giving both of them their flowers, kind of giving the history behind IncrediPaul. They were really instrumental and just huge mentors. I talk about mentorship all the time, and huge mentors, huge coaches that I could reach out to for support as things got hard or just to bounce off different ideas. So that was really great. So, like I mentioned, I started IncrediPaul in April 2020. In the meantime, coming back to, I originally reached out and got co-founders for this other organization that I was trying to do centered around LSAMP. Eventually, we were able to launch that in October of 2020. There's a lot of overlap between IncrediPaul and what I've been doing with LSAMP. They kind of started around the same time. I formalized IncrediPaul first in April, but then I formalized LSAMP Alumni Group in October 2020, and then we actually became a nonprofit, I think by December 2020, but later in that year, November, December timeframe. So went from having no organization to founding two very quickly. And I will say with IncrediPaul is it has always been something that I am passionate about, and it's like my personal brand. Yes, it's a business as well. Yes, I do offer different services and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's my personal brand. And so there were been times definitely at the beginning that I would put IncrediPaul would take a back seat to other things because I was really passionate about what I was doing with LSAMP Alumni Group at the time. Now has been rebranded to NALA STEM because we love our acronyms, National Alliance Lead Acceleration of Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. So I've talked about that organization before, and it is hugely focused on uniting, supporting, and building community among all historically excluded peoples in STEM. So really, after I launched it October 2020, my co-founders are just trying to figure out, okay, how do we reach out to people in this virtual world? A lot of social media stalking, email stalking, sending emails to different alliance coordinators, just trying to see, okay, how are people want to get involved? How can we do things? We led so many different virtual workshops, so many different panels, so many different things just to get our face out there, word out there. So I kind of honestly put IncrediPaul on pause for a little bit between October into 2021. And that's kind of been a common theme for the last 5 years is I say I do all these different things, but there's only so much you can do on your own or without stressing yourself out. And I'm not about stressing myself out. I try to be intentional about how I use my time. And definitely in the last couple of years, especially the last year, working on prioritizing myself more because a lot of things I want to do and could probably do, but I want to make sure that I am good and then I can take care of others and then everything comes out of that. So really in 2021, I was doing more stuff focused on knowledge STEM. Towards the end of 2021, I was still doing like speaking and some workshops, but I wasn't super intentional about it. I wasn't advertising it as much. Towards the end of 2021, I got inspired to do stuff with podcasting just from just thinking about it, praying about it. And then it just like kind of clicked that, you know what, I do all this speaking, whether it's from IncrediPaul or Knowledge STEM, a podcast would be a good way to get in front of people. It kind of lives on. Because I've heard from different people who have been on the show that they've had friends or like even coworkers come up to them and say that, oh, like your episode on the show really impacted them. And those are people I may never meet. And even though the show, I mean, it's been growing. Now it's top 10% globally, but it's still in the growing phase and still trying to pour into it and just make sure I'm reaching the right audience. But what my goal with the podcast has been is to connect with like-minded individuals and showcase them on this platform. But for me, it's the biggest thing is the connection piece. I'm a huge connector, huge encourager. I know that's a gift that God has given me. And I want anytime I can walk in that gift of encouragement and seeing things in people that they don't always see in themselves, connecting people, that brings so much joy in my life. So coming back to it, it's a longer story. 2021, decided I want to do a podcast. Was doing a podcast once a month. Started doing more different workshops and speaking with IncrediPaul, still leading Nala Sem, like I mentioned. Towards the end of 2022, realized, hey, I want to do more with the podcast. This is something I really enjoy doing. So made a plan for 2023. And I know I've talked about this before, doing the podcast every other week. And then by middle of 2023, do that podcast weekly. So it was in a really good groove. Things were great. I was working at a company that I wasn't very passionate about, so I don't talk about it, but it was not the best place for me. So and I think that's why I leaned more into the podcast and things. So that brought me joy, brought me a lot of happiness doing it, connecting with people. Also was married at the time, and then leading into 2024 was a huge transition with finally getting a job that I wanted for a long time, working in research and development. It caused me to move from where I was in St. Louis, Missouri, now moving to Nashville, Tennessee, where I am currently. From there was a whole lot that happened, and I shared about it on like the Thanksgiving gratitude episode of the podcast last year. But the main thing behind that is that there's a lot of transition that happened, ended up ending the marriage, a lot of hurt I had to work through. And at the same time was reacquainted with therapy, worked through that, worked through so many things. But all that stuff was happening like really the spring, summer time frame. And I was still putting out episodes of the podcast. I thought about like stopping it, but at the same time, the connection and reaching out and connecting with people, like that brought me joy. So it would have been like cutting off a lifeline for me. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't do more because there's a lot of things. There's always things going on in my head. Like if you need ideas, like I have ideas, I always have ideas and stuff I want to do. It's more so thinking about whether I should do it yet. So it's all about like timing and things. I have exciting things planned for the podcast and IncrediPaul as a whole in the next couple of years. Like it just really depends on when the best timing is. It'll come out. So really, most of last year, I think the best way to put it was I was just treading water, which is interesting to say because I was still doing a decent amount. I did a few different speaking engagements. I got connected with the Colors of Her Success. I was doing coaching, always different things, but I wasn't actively seeking out more things. I was more so doing the stuff I was already doing and just being more present. Coming into 2025, I feel more energized, rejuvenated more than ever. And now I feel like it's a time to dive more into what I've been wanting to do with speaking more, being more intentional in the second half of the year, God willing, as opportunities open up, and then doing more so coaching again on the leadership side of coaching. So last year I did more stuff for career coaching, which is what I had started with IncrediPaul, and I kind of got away from it, leaning more into leadership. But now this year, as you can see, if you listen to it, like some of the commercials that come up about the coaching, been doing more stuff with that, whether it's even podcasting too. People have reached out about help with podcasting, so I'm open there. But I really, on the coaching side, is really directed towards people who listen to the show. Yeah, it's on my website and different things. I don't really advertise it outside of the show because I realize the people who listen to the show or watch the show, you are people that really care about your development and going deeper. So those are people I want to work with and coach, the people who want to be coached. I know some people are more reluctant to coaching and they're not the right people for me. So that was definitely a longer story looking at it like about 20 minutes already. Did not think I was going to be talking that long about it. But I will say, I want to talk briefly about what it means to be an introverted leader. when you think of an introverted leader, people don't always know what that means. So I think I've said it before on the show, but I consider myself an introvert, or really, most people are really not introverts or extroverts, they're more in the middle. But I would say I'm an ambivert that's introvert leaning. And I say I'm introvert leaning in the sense that I gain more energy, or I replenish my energy by being by myself. And definitely in the season, last few months, I've been by myself more often because I just realized I'm doing a lot of things and I need to recharge. I need to be focused on myself to make sure I'm good. And so I think being an introverted leader does not always look like what you think it means. It doesn't mean that you're not someone who can do speaking. It doesn't mean that you're not someone who can speak up in meetings or someone who can do coaching or podcasting, because I do all of those things. I like to jokingly tell people that I'm an introvert with extroverted tendencies. And the key thing behind being an introverted leader is understanding your limits. Understand what you can and can't do and when you need to recharge. Boundaries is a huge thing. So we talk about in therapy, but really boundaries is something that's important for you and for others. As someone who is a recovering people pleaser, it was very difficult for me to have boundaries for people that are the closest to me, whether it's family or intimate relationships. It was just a friend or acquaintance. Like, I could have pretty strict boundaries that say like, hey, no, I can't do that, or hey, I'm not going to be there. But I would sometimes feel bad about saying no because I wanted to people please. But really, in the last year, especially learning that even when I am saying no and having that boundary, that is not me being mean. It's having a boundary to say like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm not going to do. And I don't have to feel bad. So I think that's a key thing. Like, if you're an introvert living in an extroverted world, if we feel like it's an extroverted world, but the stats actually say that there are more introverts than extroverts. It's just the extroverts are louder. So it just seems like there's more of them. But there are more people that are introverts than you realize. I realize a lot of different speakers that I hear are actually introverts. Two One of them you probably know, Simon Sinek, is an introvert. And then another one that's maybe people consider him up and coming, I say is already there, Ryan Leake. So the introvert dude speaks like over 100 times a year. And I don't know how he does it, but he's constantly on the move. But the key thing is to understand you and what you need to make sure you're good. So let's say that you have a meeting, you have a big presentation that you're supposed to give. You being an introvert, understanding that you have a limited amount of energy. So that is something that maybe if you can, like, go off by yourself, like maybe get a cup of coffee, or just kind of limit the interactions with people that day, or even the timing of the meeting. Sometimes you can't set the timing, but as much as possible, maybe set it around the time that you're not really busy the entire day with meetings, because you're going to be drained when you do that. All of this stuff, like I'm saying, is really up to the companies that you work for, the people that are around, because some people aren't as understanding. But that's the key thing, to have those boundaries, set the boundaries, and hold people to the boundaries. One thing I see, like with myself or even working with people, talking with people, is that people set boundaries, but then they allow people to push the boundaries and keep pushing them. And then instead of holding fast to the boundaries, they accommodate them to a point where it puts them at a disservice. So that's what you don't want to do. You don't want to put yourself as a disservice just to please other people. At the end of the day, you need to be good so that you can help others. So I'll bring it back. I'm a person of faith. A lot of times with Christians, we talk about serving people, pleasing people, serving God and pleasing people. But the thing is, like, we're not supposed to please people. We can serve people, we can please God, but we don't want to get in a place where we are putting people ahead of ourselves and not thinking of ourselves. One last thing on faith, and I'll wrap things up because I know not everyone that listens to this podcast is a person of faith. But the thing is, like the Bible talks about loving your neighbor as yourself. And people have probably heard that before. But the thing is, it says love your neighbor as yourself. So that means you have to love yourself first. So if you don't love yourself, you can't love your neighbor. So keep that in mind. As an introverted leader, do some self-reflection, understand what are the situations that are draining, who are the people that are draining your energy. Like maybe you see them on the calendar and like, oh man, like this is going to be a lot. I think it's time that you have a conversation. It might feel a little bit awkward, but at the end of the day, you need to make sure that you're good and you talk to them and say, hey, like I'm really more of an introvert. I need some time. I need some space. Maybe they're in your personal space. Set those boundaries. A lot of times with extroverts, they don't realize that they're in your bubble, in your space. Extroverts kind of lay it all on the table. They say everything that's on their mind. And so because you're not saying it, they think everything is good. Give people the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes people are really mean, doing things on purpose, trying to make your life miserable. But the thing is, majority of the time, they don't realize that they're making your life miserable. They might not be good at picking up body language, tone, all those different things. You have to say the thing, say like, hey, and this could take some coaching. Like if you reach out for me for coaching or anyone else on how to approach it, depending on the situation, uh, to make sure you can diffuse it and handle in the best way. So that was a short conversation on introversion, a longer conversation about how IncrediPaul was created. I am super excited to see what happens in the second half of the year, the rest of 2025. Just really enjoying doing the podcast and see if it expands to something more or maybe it takes a different direction. But more to come on IncrediPaul, more to come on Knowledge STEM as well. We're doing great things, been more focused on doing stuff on the research side of things, doing grants, foundations. The other thing I should be more intentional about doing is Knowledge STEM is a nonprofit, which means we need money, we need support. So if you are able or gracious enough to help people who are in STEM, but are not the typical people in STEM, so that includes women, Latinos, Black people, all minorities in STEM, like that is what it's about. So you can go to knowledgestem.com, try and figure out how you can support the organization or support me as well, because a lot of times what happens with Knowledge STEM is I support it through IncrediPaul with different things, different resources, things like that. So whether you choose to support Knowledge STEM directly or you support IncrediPaul, picking up some merch, coaching through me, bringing me to your organization to do different speaking. Either way, if you support me, you support Knowledge STEM, same thing. And that was a different episode. I haven't done a solo episode really since the beginning of the year. So you haven't heard directly from me. And I think there's some newer people that may not know much about me. And I think that was the deepest I've gone into the story behind even starting IncrediPaul, some of the key people involved in that. I hope it was useful. I hope it inspires you. If you have a dream, something that you want to do, you've been thinking about doing it, do it. Reach out to help, reach out to mentors, get the resources you need, keep pushing, keep trying, and you too can be incredible.
Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible. Incredible.